My wife married me for my family's $500, $0 estate, then slept with my best friend, and now she's claiming half of everything in a brutal court battle. I never saw it coming. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My wife married me for my family's estate, worth about $500,000. That's not a joke. She always acted sweet, charming, the perfect wife. But behind that, I started noticing little things that didn't add up. At first, I thought she was just stressed or tired. She'd stay out late more often, claiming she was working late at the office. I didn't think much of it because she's always been good at hiding her true self. Then came the small changes. Her phone kept ringing when she was in the shower. She'd get defensive whenever I asked about her whereabouts, and her perfume started to smell different, more provocative. I caught her lying once about a dinner with her friends, only to find out she was actually with Mark, my best friend. That's when I first felt the prick of suspicion. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was overthinking, but deep down I knew something was wrong. It all came crashing down one night when I came home early from work. I'd been feeling uneasy for weeks and I decided to check her phone. I know, people say that's wrong, but I couldn't shake the gut feeling that she was hiding something. I unlocked her phone and saw a string of messages with Mark. At first I thought it was just innocent banter, but then I saw the photos, them in bed together, clothes discarded, bodies intertwined. My stomach dropped. My wife, the woman I loved, the woman I married for her charm and her lies, was screwing my best friend. I sat there frozen, staring at the screen. My mind raced. How could she do this? How long had it been going on? The betrayal hit me like a train. I felt sick, angry, heartbroken. I couldn't believe I'd been played for a fool. I'd always been the good guy, the loyal husband, providing her with everything she wanted. Our beautiful house, expensive vacations, a trust fund worth $500,000. And she just used me. Used my trust, my love, my friendship to get what she wanted. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there staring at her messages, trying to understand how she could be so cruel. I thought about everything we built together, how she pretended to be the perfect wife, the perfect partner. I remembered the birthdays, the holidays, the quiet mornings we shared, all a lie. She'd been sleeping with my best friend Mark for months, maybe longer, and I never saw it coming. The worst part, she's been lying to everyone, her family, my family, even herself. And now she's claiming she's entitled to half of everything, even after what she did. That's when I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't just let her get away with it. I called her the next morning, asking her to come over so we could talk. She played the innocent victim card, crying, saying she was under a lot of stress, that it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything. Yeah, right. I told her I knew everything, and her face twisted into a sneer. She looked me dead in the eyes and lied outright, saying I must have misunderstood, that she'd never do something so disgusting. But I had the proof right there in her messages and her photos. That moment hit me hard. I felt a mix of rage and sadness. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she betray me like this? I'd always been loyal, always supported her dreams, and she repaid me with this. It made me question everything about our marriage, about trust and loyalty. I was furious, but I also felt a deep ache inside, like my heart had been shattered into pieces. And yet, I knew I couldn't let her see how much she'd hurt me. I had to plan my next move carefully. I had to decide whether to fight, forgive, or walk away. But one thing was clear. Betrayal wasn't just a slap in the face, it was a brutal wake-up call. I spent the next few days trying to process everything. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I thought I knew her, thought we had a future. But now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who married me for money and then used me to satisfy her own desires. I started to think about the money she's after, half of everything, even after she cheated and lied. I knew I had to be smart. I couldn't just kick her out and forget about it. No, I needed a plan, a way to make her pay, not just emotionally but financially, because if she's going to play dirty, I'll play dirty right back. I've got some ideas brewing and I'm not backing down, not this time. I thought I'd be overwhelmed with anger, but honestly, after the initial shock wore off, a strange clarity took over. I started to see everything in black and white. Her lies, her manipulations, her blatant cheating, all of it made me realize I'd been a fool to trust her so easily. She's always been bitchy when she didn't get her way, but I never expected her to go this far to sleep with my best friend, Mark. That was the biggest slap in the face. I mean, Mark, my closest friend. How could he do that to me? To us? It's like a punch to the gut every time I think about it. I knew I couldn't just confront her without a plan. That's when I started digging into her finances, her phone, her emails. I wanted to understand just how deep the betrayal went, and also I needed leverage. Been obsessed with the idea of getting half of everything, our house, the estate, the savings. She's been pushing for a divorce, claiming she entitled to her share because she's been loyal for so long. Yeah, right. I saw through her lies. She's been planning this for months, probably just waiting for the right moment to squeeze me out. One night, I sat down and drafted a plan. First, I got a private investigator to follow her. I needed proof of her ongoing affair, and I wanted to see if she was planning to leave soon, maybe with some of the money. Turns out, she's been secretly meeting Mark at a fancy hotel downtown. No surprise there. They've been sneaking around, and she's been telling her friends she's just tired and needs a break. But I knew better. I also found out that she's been transferring money from our joint account to her personal account, small amounts, but enough to raise suspicion. She's trying to hide it, but I've got her on tape, sneaking out at night, whispering into her phone. Meanwhile, I started to get cold. I knew I had to do something more than just watch and wait. I talked to a lawyer I knew, someone who's handled divorce cases involving large estates. He told me that claims for half of everything could be challenged if I could prove she was unfaithful and that her actions were a form of misconduct. That was a relief, but I also knew I had to be careful. I didn't want her to spin this into a sympathy story or to get even more aggressive. Most of all, I was angry at myself. I kept thinking about how I'd been so naive. I'd worked hard to provide for her, to build a future together, and she was just using me. That's what hurts the most, feeling like I was nothing more than a paycheck to her. I bought her the expensive jewelry, the designer clothes, the trips. All for what? To be betrayed. To be played. It's like I was a fool all along, and now I'm just waking up. I decided I had to confront her one last time, but this time with all the evidence. I scheduled a meeting at our house, telling her I wanted to talk about the future. When she arrived, I laid out everything I knew: her affair, her money transfers, her lies. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she started spinning her usual story about how she been under so much stress, how I must have misunderstood, how Mark is just a brother to her. That was the moment I realized she's a master manipulator. She's good at lying, but I wasn't going to let her keep doing it. I told her she's not getting a dime until the divorce is settled, and I made it clear that I had enough evidence to challenge her claims for half of everything. She scoffed, called me paranoid, said I was overreacting, but I saw the fear in her eyes. She knows I'm serious. That's when she started to get bitchy, throwing tantrums, claiming I was ruining her life, that she's entitled to what she's asking for because she's been a good wife. I just looked at her and said, "You've been a good wife to my money, maybe, but not to me." That night I slept like a stone. I felt a strange mixture of relief and disgust. Relief because I finally had a plan, and disgust because I realized how deep her betrayal went. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. Furious at her, furious at Mark, and furious at myself for not seeing it sooner. But I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to let her walk away with my estate. I'd fight for what's mine, and I was going to make her regret ever crossing me. Now I'm just waiting for the next move. I know she's planning something, probably trying to spin this into a victim story, but I've got enough evidence to turn the tables. The game on now, and I'm not backing down. The days that followed were a blur of planning, anger, and a slowly building sense of resolve. I kept digging through her emails, bank statements, anything that might give me an edge. I also hired a forensic accountant, someone who could trace every penny she'd been secretly transferring. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deeply she'd been planning this. It wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment thing. She'd been scheming for months, maybe even longer, to get her hands on my estate and then some. Meanwhile, his behavior grew more erratic. She started throwing tantrums, accusing me of spying and trying to ruin her life. She called me paranoid, said I was losing my mind, and tried to spin it as her being the victim. Her tone was bitchy, dismissive, and full of lies. She tell anyone who'd listen she was just stressed out, that I was controlling and paranoid, that she never cheated, and that I was just jealous because I was insecure. But I had the evidence, screenshots, bank transfers, her hotel receipts, and even a few photos from the hotel room she'd left her phone behind. One night I decided to confront her again, this time with everything laid out. I told her I knew about her affair with Mark, about the money she's been siphoning off, and that I had proof. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, claiming she'd been under so much pressure, that she loved me, but she just needed someone to talk to. She looked genuinely hurt, but I saw right through her act. She's good at crying on cue, but her eyes tell a different story, cold, calculating, and full of lies. I told her I wasn't going to let her get away with it, that I'd fight her in court if I had to, and I'd make sure she got nothing. She scoffed, said I was just jealous, that Mark was just a friend, and that I was overreacting. I just shook my head. I'd had enough of her lies. She's always been bitchy when she doesn't get her way, and now her true colors were showing more than ever. She kept insisting she's entitled to half the estate because she married into it, and that her affair was just a mistake, nothing more. That night, I started talking to a lawyer I found through a friend. We discussed the case, and he confirmed what I'd suspected, that her infidelity could be used against her in court, especially if I could prove she'd been unfaithful during the marriage. That could potentially reduce her claim for half of everything, especially since she's been caught cheating and sneaking around. I also told him about the money transfers, and he said if I could show she's been intentionally hiding assets or trying to manipulate the estate, I'd have a good shot at fighting her claim. Honestly, I felt a strange mix of guilt and relief. Guilt because I'd trusted her, and relief because I finally had a way to fight back. I was tired of being played for a fool. Every day, I'd wake up feeling more certain that I was doing the right thing by standing my ground. This bitchy attitude only fueled my resolve. She's been trying to guilt-trip me, calling me a monster, saying I'm destroying her life, but I know the truth. She's the one who destroyed our marriage, who used me, lied to my face, and slept with my best friend. Now I'm waiting for her to make her next move. I know she's planning something, probably to spin this as me being crazy or possessive. But I've got everything documented. I've got her on tape, her receipts, her lies. I'm not going to let her walk away with a penny more than what's fair, especially since she's been so blatantly unfaithful. It's not just about money anymore, it's about justice. She thought she could get away with everything, but I'm not letting her screw me over. Not this time. I keep reminding myself, I'm not the fool anymore. I see her for what she really is. Manipulative, bitchy woman who married me for my estate and then slept with my best friend. That's the reality I have to face, and I'm ready. I'll fight her in court, I'll expose her lies, and I'll make sure she regrets ever crossing me. Because if there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that betrayal cuts deep, but sometimes it awakens a strength you didn't know you had. And I'm just getting started. Over the next couple of weeks, everything escalated faster than I expected. I had my lawyer file for an official divorce, citing her infidelity and financial misconduct as grounds. I wanted to make it clear that I wasn't just going to roll over and hand her half of everything without a fight. The court documents laid everything out: her affair with Mark, the secret bank transfers, her attempts to hide assets, and I made sure those details were front and center. His reaction was predictable. She flipped out when she found out I'd gone to the lawyer. She called me crazy, accused me of trying to destroy her, and started crying again, throwing a tantrum that sounded more like a spoiled child than a grown woman. She insisted she was entitled to half the estate because she married me, even though she'd been sleeping with my best friend and secretly siphoning money. Her bitchy attitude was on full display, and honestly, I'd had enough of her acting like the victim. One night she showed up at the house unannounced, looking desperate. She begged me to work things out, crying and saying she loved me, that she was sorry for everything, but I wasn't buying it. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew the truth, that I knew about her lying, cheating, and stealing. I told her she could keep pretending, but I wasn't going to let her take my estate, and I wasn't going to be fooled again. That was the turning point. She started to get more aggressive, accusing me of ruining her life and trying to control her. She called me jealous and possessive, but I knew better. I knew her game now. She's always been bitchy when she doesn't get her way, and now she was showing her true colors. I didn't back down. I told her she'd have to fight me in court if she wanted half my estate, and I had the evidence to back it up. Meanwhile, I kept pushing forward with the legal process. I subpoenaed her bank accounts, her phone records, her hotel receipts. Every piece of evidence pointed to one thing: had been planning this for months. It wasn't just a fling. It was a full-blown scheme to squeeze me out of my own money and property. I also hired a private investigator to follow her again, and he confirmed she was still sneaking around, meeting Mark, staying out late, lying about her whereabouts. What annoyed me most was her constant lying. She'd tell her friends she was just stressed, that she needed a break, but I knew better. I had her texts, her hotel check-ins, her secret meetings. The worst part, she still tried to deny everything, even when confronted with the proof. She's good at lying, but I was getting better at catching her in her own web of bullshit. I started to realize that bitchiness was just her way of covering up her guilt. When I pressed her, she'd lash out, accuse me of trying to control her, or call me paranoid. But I wasn't paranoid. I was just seeing her for what she was, a manipulative woman who married me for my money and then cheated on me with my best friend. At this point, I was more determined than ever. I wasn't going to let her take my estate, especially not after everything she'd done. I told her straight up that I'd fight her in court, that I had enough evidence to prove her misconduct, and that she'd get nothing if she kept up her lies. I could see her frustration boiling over. She was used to getting her way, and now she was facing the reality that I wasn't going to let her screw me over. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, angry, and hurt, but also a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was taking control of my life again. I knew she'd try to spin this as me being crazy, but I had the proof to back up everything. I wasn't just some naive husband anymore. I was a man who was ready to fight for what's rightfully his. Looking back, I realize how much her betrayal changed me. I've become more cautious, more aware of who I can trust. I learned that sometimes the people closest to you can turn out to be the biggest liars. And I also learned that even in the darkest moments, you have a choice. You can either let it destroy you or use it as fuel to come out stronger. I'm choosing the latter. The fight is far from over, but I'm ready. His bitchy, manipulative side has been exposed, and I won't stop until I get justice. The court date finally arrived, and I was nervous but also relieved. All the evidence I'd gathered, her texts, hotel receipts, bank transfers, the private investigator's reports, was ready to be presented. I knew would try to spin her story, cry her crocodile tears, and claim she was the victim of some terrible misunderstanding, but I had the truth on my side. I sat in that courtroom, feeling the weight of everything she'd done, knowing I was about to expose her for what she really was, a manipulative, cheating bitch who married me for money and then betrayed me with my best friend. When took the stand, she started her usual act, pretending to be innocent, claiming she loved me, that her affair with Mark was just sex, and that she never wanted to hurt me. Her voice was trembling, her eyes filled with fake tears, and her tone dripping with false remorse, but I was prepared. I had her messages on my phone, the hotel photos, the bank statements showing her secret transfers, all laid out for the judge to see. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a victim of circumstances, but I cut him off. I told the court about her ongoing affair, her lies, her attempts to hide assets, and her manipulative attitude. I explained how she'd married me for my family's estate, then slept with Mark for months, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the skepticism in his eyes as I presented the evidence. His face started to turn red when I described her sneaking out at night, her secret meetings with Mark, and the money she'd transferred to her personal accounts. She tried to deny everything, but I had her on tape saying she was just tired, and her hotel check-in receipts proved she'd lied. Her bitchy attitude was on full display, and I could tell she was losing control of her narrative. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. He awarded me full control of the estate, dismissed her claim for half, and ordered her to pay court costs for her misconduct. I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. His face twisted in fury and frustration, and she spat at me as she left the courtroom, calling me a monster, a liar, and claiming I ruined her life. But I didn't care. I knew the truth, and I'd fought hard for it. After the court hearing, I finally sat down alone, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and relief. I looked at the documents, the court's decision, and thought about everything I'd been through. I'd been betrayed by the woman I loved, used by my best friend, and almost lost everything. But I also realized I was stronger than I thought. I had stood up for myself, fought back, and won. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and dignity. The aftermath was not easy. Didn't take the loss well. She tried to contact me repeatedly, begging for another chance, crying and claiming she still loves me, but I knew better. I saw her true face and realized I never wanted to go back to that. I've started rebuilding, focusing on myself and trying to forget the betrayal that nearly destroyed me. Looking back, I've learned a lot. Trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you can turn out to be the biggest liars. Money can make people do crazy things, and betrayal cuts deep. But I also learned that you can fight back, even when it feels like everything's falling apart. I'd advise anyone in a similar situation to gather evidence, stay calm, and never let the other person see you break. Because in the end, truth and justice will find a way. And sometimes, the biggest betrayal can lead to the greatest strength. After everything settled, I felt a strange kind of emptiness mixed with relief. The house was quieter without bitchy tantrums or her manipulative smiles. The estate was finally mine, legally and completely, but the real victory was reclaiming my peace of mind. I still think about those nights when I uncovered her lies, the betrayal that cut so deep I thought I'd never recover. But I did. I learned the hard way that trust is something you have to earn every day, and some people are just good at pretending to be what they're not. Looking back, I realized that her marriage for my money was a calculated move, and her affair with Mark was just the icing on the cake. She never loved me. She loved the idea of wealth, security, and control. And when she saw her chance to take everything, she took it without a second thought. But I also learned something about myself, how much strength I have when pushed to the edge. I was ready to lose everything, but I fought like hell to keep what was mine. Now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life. I've started dating again, but I'm more cautious. I don't trust easily anymore, and I don't want to get played again. I've learned that money can turn people into monsters, and that betrayal often comes from the people you least expect. It's a brutal lesson, but one I needed to learn. The biggest thing I want to say to anyone reading this is, never ignore the signs. If something feels off, dig deeper. Keep your eyes open, especially when it comes to your relationships and finances. Trust is earned, not given blindly. And if you ever find yourself betrayed, remember that you're stronger than you think. Fight for your dignity, your estate, and your peace of mind. Don't let anyone take that from you without a fight. I never thought I'd be writing about such a personal, painful experience, but I hope it helps someone else. Because betrayal, especially from a spouse or close friend, is one of the worst feelings in the world. But it also reveals who you really are, resilient, determined, and capable of overcoming even the darkest moments. I may have lost a lot, but I gained clarity, strength, and a better understanding of the kind of person I want to be. And that's worth more than any estate or material thing. So if you're going through something similar, stay strong, document everything, trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to fight for what's rightfully yours. Because in the end, justice and truth will always come out on top.